Last year I played a game called A Week in Hell. It was a game that came with Battles magazine, and I enjoyed that game. It was a game of urban fighting during the Vietnam War. It had limited replay value, it turned out, but overall I still enjoyed the game, so I was curious when I heard that there was another game coming out from the same designer with a similar topic, urban fighting again, and published by the same group that publishes Battles magazine. Now that group also has a publishing house that is called Nuts Publishing, and this is their first title. The game is Phantom Fury, a tactical solitaire war game that represents the battle for Fallujah in November 2004. You, the player, are going to guide a group of US soldiers against the insurgents that are trying to defend the sector of the city. This is the map for the game. It is printed on thick paper. I will probably need to place it under a piece of plexiglass when you're playing the game. I just do not have one with me. At the beginning of the game, you start with your soldiers in these areas here, indicated by the black dots, and also the first groups of insurgents will be there. The rest of the map is empty, but it will be filled with markers indicating insurgents and suspects as you progress in the game and as you go around exploring different areas of the map. So the map is empty not because it is empty, but because it is full of hostiles that you haven't spotted yet. Your task in this game is to take control of the entire map, to take control of everything on the map, every single area, and you only have 16 turns to do that. 13 in a optional game variant. That really is not much time, and in fact, running against the clock is going to be your main challenge in this game. Some general concepts. The map is divided in areas that may represent buildings or streets. The areas may be adjacent, like these two areas here are, or they may be neighboring in case they're adjacent to the same section of street. Each building area is divided in several boxes. They may represent the roof. You may have one or two boxes for the second floor, and one, two, or sometimes three boxes for the first floor. Then each area also has an entry box that you use to enter the area from the ground, and that may be a courtyard or an open ground area. Also, the roof areas of adjacent building zones count as adjacent to one another, so you can jump from one roof area to the roof area of an adjacent zone, which is pretty cool. When you explore the map, you will place control markers on the map when you manage to take control of an area, and when you take control of an area that is adjacent or neighboring to areas that you have not explored yet, you have to activate that area. First thing, you draw a marker from this cup to determine the exact nature of that area. There are two possible outcomes. The green dot, that represents a normal area, and the red dot represents a fortified area. In a fortified area, of course, you will find more formidable enemies. Then you draw two suspect markers from this cup. These markers have letters and numbers that indicate where you should place them. The first number is where you should try to place it first, and in case that box is occupied, then you use the second number, but this was not the case. These markers represent where there may be enemy activities, or maybe there is not. You just do not know yet. Those are just suspects, so just suspicions that you have. You can figure out the real nature of the suspect markers in several ways. For example, you can assault the boxes with the suspect marker. You can fire into those boxes. When you are revealing a suspect marker, you roll on this table here. In a normal zone, actually there is a high chance that the suspect marker is a dummy. Nothing happens, you simply remove the marker. There was nothing to worry about. But you may find enemy guerrilla units or martyr units, which are harder to eliminate, or also you may find an explosive that of course is going to blow up and it's going to be dangerous for you, or you may become the target of a sniper attack. In a fortified zone, you almost never have dummies. Fortified zones are serious places. You most likely will encounter martyr units, but again, there may be explosive or sniper attacks that you will have to face. Your forces include regular infantry. All infantry units have a movement factor of 4. It is not printed on the marker. The only number that is printed there is the combat factor. You have combined anti-armor teams. These teams always are together with one of your infantry units. They cannot act by themselves. Their role is to carry around the explosive marker that can be used for a particularly powerful attack, or really this marker here that indicates extra firepower that team can lend to the infantry unit. Each time that you spend a click on this marker, your combat team receives a +2, the team that the anti-armor team is supporting. So you just stack these markers here together with the infantry unit that the anti-armor team is supporting. You also have Iraqi troops that are fighting on your side. There are restrictions. You cannot use them to do all the things that you can do with your other infantry, but they're still useful. And then you have armor support. These units have a combat factor of 8, pretty powerful, but these units have a variable movement factor that changes each turn. You will have to roll a die when you're trying to move this unit, and that will tell you the number of street areas that unit can move. After the air support phase, you may receive reinforcements, and after that you enter the fire combat phase, during which your units may fire at enemies. Units that are firing in this phase are turned to indicate that they fired, and they cannot move or assault during this turn. When you're firing in this phase, you roll 1d10 and you apply several possible modifiers. Enemy units on roofs are slightly easier to hit. Mortar units are harder to hit. Suspect markers are not that easy either. After you roll a die, you compare the modified result with your combat factor. If you rolled equal to or less than your combat factor, then it is a hit, otherwise nothing happens. If you hit an insurgent unit, that unit is eliminated. If you hit a suspect marker, then you reveal that suspect marker. You're rolling on that table that I showed you earlier, so you reveal the exact nature of that suspect marker. But after revealing a suspect marker, you will receive sniper fire. That's bad. You have to total the number of enemy units and suspect markers that are adjacent or neighboring to the unit that caused the activation. Then you roll a die. If you roll that number or less, your unit is pinned. If you roll a 0, your unit suffers a step reduction. If your unit is pinned, it cannot act until it rallies. At the end of your turn, you will have a chance to roll, and you will see if you will be able to bring that unit back to shape. But a unit may end up being pinned for several turns, so that can be bad. Next, your units that did not fire can move. They can move up to 4 locations. Those can be boxes within a building zone. You have to follow the areas that connect the boxes. You can jump from a roof area to another roof area, or from a courtyard or open ground zone. You can enter a street. You can enter any street section which is adjacent to the building zone in which you are. Problem is that as you enter a street, you may receive sniper fire. Are there insurgent units adjacent or neighboring to the street area where you are? Then you roll 1d10. You roll the number of insurgent units or less, your squad is reduced. You suffer a step reduction. Are there suspect markers adjacent and neighboring the area where you are? Then you roll another d10. You roll the number of suspect markers or less, your unit is pinned. Luckily enough, if you're crossing in a section where you have armor support, you can ignore sniper fire from the suspect markers, and the insurgents can only pin you. They cannot inflict a step reduction. When you enter the courtyard or open ground zone of the area where you're moving in, finally you can catch a breath. No, not at all, because if there are suspect markers and or insurgents, they may fire at you. They may execute defensive fire. There is a procedure, but suffice to say that, again, there is another level of danger that you have to go through to officially enter the building zone. Also, as you enter a new area, you can choose to detach a security element represented by this marker here, which you place on the board. This will give you several advantages. For example, it will prevent enemy units from running away, but as you can see, it reduces your combat factor by 1 point. Then your units can assault adjacent insurgents and or suspect markers. During an assault, you roll a die for your unit and a die for the opponent that you are assaulting. You apply modifiers for your roll. If you rolled your combat factor or less, you eliminate the enemy unit. If the opponent rolls its combat factor or less, it inflicts a step reduction on your unit. If you eliminate an enemy unit or the enemy unit runs away, then you enter the space in which the enemy was. You have modifiers to your die rolls based on things such as the type of area or the type of unit that you're attacking, but there are also special modifiers based on your attack being top down or bottom up. Attacks between enemies at the same level do not have the type of modifier. Bottom up attacks are a little safer. You have a penalty when you are trying to hit the opponent, but if the opponent survives, then the opponent has a penalty when fighting back. The contrary is true for top-down attacks that are particularly violent. You get a bonus when attacking. It is easier to hit the opponent, but if the opponent is not killed, then the opponent also will receive a bonus when firing back. So there will be more casualties in a top-down attack. Also, if you eliminate a unit in a top-down attack, you will flood the place. That means that you simply keep going down and attacking enemy units until either you die or you suffer step reduction, you decide to stop, or until you cleared the entire place. So top-down attacks allow you to take control of an entire area in just one turn through multiple combats in case you have multiple enemy units in that area, but again, they can be much more dangerous. I enjoyed this game. I enjoy the intense tactical feel that the game creates. I like how the different parts of the forces under your control work in different ways and how they interact, how you have air support interacting with what infantry is going to do next, infantry with armor, and you have to make all of these parts of your forces work together to be effective. I like that. But more than everything, I enjoy the countdown clock. This is really what makes a game come alive to me. And what really creates the story. At the beginning, you have the sense that you're progressing really slowly. You have a long line to cover and you have to keep your line of men intact. You have to have the entire line progress through the map, because if you leave an area open, then there is a rule about infiltration and the enemies may be able to retake areas that you took control of earlier. So it is going to be a slow advance and you see the marker going around the turn track and you know that you're not going fast enough. Later in the game you may be able to seal off an area of the city, so now you are progressing much faster. You are towards the edge of the map from which the opponents will leave. They will just leave the map instead of moving to other areas where you may have to fight them later. You are going faster, but at that time you're also almost out of time, and more importantly you have units that have been reduced at this point. They took step losses, they are weak, and now it is a problem to commit them to the type of brutal and fast combat that you would need in order to complete your mission on time. So you can choose whether to lose the game because all of your men are killed, or to lose it because you do not complete your mission on time. Of course, you should choose the third option, but you're looking for one that is how to accomplish both things, to have your men survive and to be able to complete your mission on time. One factor about this game though is that it has a certain repetition element. I think that unless you really enjoy intense tactical combat or you really have an interest for the theme, the game may feel a little repetitive at times. Sure, there are many different ways in which you can approach the problems that the game creates, but you are clearing out a block after another, and they work in different ways, but not hugely so. A more serious thing, I think, is replay value. Just the fact that this game does not have a huge replay value. The previous game, A Week in Hell, by the same designer, had that problem to me, that game after game, it tended to present the same story. And here also the restrictions of the system are such that game after game, I don't think you can attempt hugely creative, incredibly different things from what you did before, just because the system will not allow you to. I guess you can, but then you lose, so what's the point? So I just had the impression that you will not be able able to play this game many times before the game starts feeling a little too samey. What I know is that I played this game and I enjoyed it, and that it is not too expensive, it is not too terrible to learn, so I think that even if I do not play it much in the future, I still had a good time playing it for what I got out of the game so far, so I'm still happy of the investment in money and time that I made in purchasing, then learning and playing this game. I think it is overall a good game.